Let's party.
Hello, welcome. It is party loader time. It is Wednesday night. It is episode 222 of the show. Welcome. Yeah, we've got three of us here. We could probably all do the two. There we go. There's mine. Contribute, motherfuckers. All right, cool. There we go. My name's Luke Vitalik. That's it. Matt, the Game Dad Diet below me on the left, and Adrian Chia on the right. We are bereft one Christian Paulson Brown tonight, and just the three of us. So the window orientation changes again. Woo. That's it.
It's not the only orientation that changes.
Oh.
Week to week.
Every week.
Something you'd like to share with us, Adrian?
Just Matt and I decide who's going to be on top, last minute. So
right.
We decided we'd both be on the bottom tonight.
Yeah. Absolutely. You're both bottoms tonight.
I did not agree to Luke being on top, though. God, no.
No.
He
just powered his way up there.
Yeah. I'm the pinnacle of the pyramid. I don't know what that makes me. Maybe closer to the sun? Oh, fuck knows. Oldest.
No, just like a pyramid, ancient.
Yeah. It's probably fair. Oh man. So yeah, another week, another couple of weeks actually, of stuff going on. I feel like it's been an exceptionally rough couple of weeks personally in terms of feeling the crunch. So yeah. With some pretty gross weather heading Perth way as well, so we've kind of been reined in and escaped what was supposed to be like the next coming of the apocalypse storm, which didn't actually end up being that bad.
Really happen.
No,
it was bad north, like it was bad up north, but I think down south of the river we were pretty good. So.
Yeah,
because we got warned about massive storms, and I was like, oh god, we're going to be without power for like 2 days.
Yeah,
but then like 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago, we had a blackout and that was unbearable. And then during this big storm, there was no power outages at all.
Yeah.
So.
Do you know what I think it is? I think it's like, normally when there's a big storm coming, people aren't that worried. But in the year of 2020, people are just like, it's going to be bad.
Yeah.
It's going to be a blood storm. Or like a bone storm.
Bone storm, absolutely.
There was a small town that there was a whole bunch of photos of it on Twitter and everything, of a whole like a street of stores, and all of their roofs were just torn off and thrown into the street by the storm.
Oh.
Like it was kind of insane. So I think we got off lucky down south of the river. Yep.
Yeah. Well, I mean, 10 years ago when we had something similar, it was like every car on the road was Swiss cheesed from hail kind of situation. So
yeah.
I lived just down the street from a house that literally collapsed, and it was in a fucking heap after that shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. It's a horror show, that's for sure. Matt, speaking of horror shows.
Yeah, it's me.
Don't call Matt a horror show.
No. I thought we'd kick off tonight in this time in gaming, chatting about a bit of a post-mortem, and it's probably an appropriate word actually, on our time with Man of Medan, because we did our final stream last week to wrap up that game. So, which was a lot quicker than I thought, as it turned out.
I told you. I thought that we were going to get through it in like an hour or two, and it turned out to be closer to an hour.
Yeah, just under, in fact. Sparing time for mucking around with stream stuff. So yeah, so I think that put us as a total play time of just under 4 hours for the whole experience.
It was like 3.5 to 4, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, which I wonder how that contrasts with like the single player sort of playthrough, given that we were probably double handling certain elements simultaneously that you'd have to do sort of one at a time if you played solo. So maybe that sped things up. Yeah.
I think when you're playing it solo, like there's certain parts where you play it from two characters' perspectives. So you play it through one character's perspective, and then you play it through the others. And so a lot of the decisions that we ended up making where like you were basically like, I'm going to stab the shit out of Matt. When you're playing it solo, if you go into that, I believe you play through it as one character. And then if you decide to stab, the second time you go through that sequence with the next character, the weird entity that you see will try to stab the shit out of you because that was you playing that character.
So you actually get a chance to respond to your previous self, is what you're saying?
Yes. So
Okay.
like you can quick time event because like you had made the choice to stab. Now you quick time event to try and jump in there and stop yourself doing that. I think that's how it plays out. I'd need to go back and check.
QTEing yourself sounds oddly masturbatory, I've got to say.
Yeah. But
when I do it, it's always a quick time event.
Just one. Only one.
Yeah.
I know there's certain sequences where you do play it from the perspective of both characters, but it's weird. It's really, really strange. I'm fairly certain the single player experience is a bit longer though. So
yeah. Nice. Well, I mean, what were your thoughts sort of wrapping up overall as a sort of multiplayer kind of shrouded in mystery sort of horror experience?
It was pretty shit, honestly. Not to be mean, like I thought
1 out of 10.
I wouldn't go that low, but it definitely left some to be desired. Yeah,
it's like a 3 or a 4, I think. Like it had points in there. Like if I played only half of it, then I'd be saying like 6 or 7 out of 10. But like having played the whole thing, I think that the game really falls apart in the end. You kind of get the impression that the developers were struggling to actually finish the game off, and so a lot of the creativity just goes out the window at the end. It's basically like you were saying yourself, Luke, like the last 2 deaths that we kind of experienced with the characters were just quick time events.
Yeah, they felt unfair. The earlier ones we had felt that they were justified in the mistakes that we'd made.
Yeah.
Whereas the second couple that we had felt like we had absolutely no agency whatsoever. So
like you failed one quick time event, so you're dead now. That's the end of that.
After actually successfully passing a bunch of them. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just like real life.
Yeah,
just like real life.
Well, actually, you're not that far wrong. I mean, you could successfully cross the road, 3 times, and on the 4th time, if you fuck it up, you're still dead. I suppose that's probably realistic. Yeah.
I mean, if you're running out in front of traffic, then like those 3 successful quick time events do not mean you're going to succeed the 4th one.
Every time I run across the train tracks, little buttons appear, and I get my quick time event.
Yeah.
I do think that Detroit Become Human did the whole quick time event thing better.
Way better.
Substantially better. Like I think that overall Detroit is a better narrative game. I don't even think I would call Man of Medan really a horror. There was nothing really like I hate horror games because I can't handle it. Like you put me in front of Alien Isolation and I'm like, nope. And as much as I want to love that game, as much as I want to try, it's my new Dark Souls, basically. It's just like I can't deal with. Man of Medan is basically like, Goosebumps. Like there's nothing really scary about it.
Yeah.
Not Horrorstein.
I was thinking the same thing, actually.
Horror Camp Jelly Jam?
Yeah.
Night of the Living Dummy 3?
For kids, they were kind of scary, so I'll pay that.
I love Goosebumps, man. And I love the fact that, like, when you ordered them through the school book club, you sometimes got, like, a glow-in-the-dark snake or something with it.
Oh. I never got that.
See, I'm not saying Goosebumps is bad. I'm saying that it is as spooky as Goosebumps for an adult. Like, which is not.
Yeah, it sort of tread that light line of not giving you too much context and information about the situation you're in to create mystery, but by removing a lot of that information, it kind of resulted in confusion before horror. So yeah.
Like it was really. I'm pretty sure it was like a halfway point where the narrator actually asked us, like, have you worked out what's going on yet? And it's just so blatant, like, there's something else going on here that isn't zombies, that you're like, oh, okay, so there's a mystery involved, which takes the mystery away, right? Yeah. Like, rather than feeling smart. Yeah, don't tell me there's a mystery. Like, let me try and solve the fact.
Yeah.
They're literally telling you and not showing you.
Yeah.
Well, kind of. It's weird because there's a narrator that sort of separates the different chapters in the game. That's kind of like the Crypt Keeper in Tales from the Crypt in the way that he sort of sets up the whole thing. And I actually don't mind that aspect of it, but I
like that.
Yeah, and he's actually quite cool. I think he's going to be sort of the tying thread through all of the Dark Pictures anthology that they're going to have in future, because the next one, Little Hope, he actually refers to at the end of this game too. So he sort of sets up, the next one that's going to happen. But I don't know. At one point, he actually asked us if we wanted a clue. And it was an interesting mechanic. This is an example of a couple of the things that I really did like about the game, despite the fact that it didn't stick to landing on just about everything else. So sometimes we got the option of gathering information or completing a task, but because we were playing two-player, we both had to agree on the course of action to take, otherwise it wouldn't actually give us the thing. And we weren't always necessarily able to communicate with each other quickly enough to kind of line up those choices. So it meant that there was a chance that we would have one of us say, yes, I want it, and the other one of us say, no, I don't, and then therefore you don't get it. So,
yeah,
which is kind of cool. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, but even then, when it was like giving you a hint, it was so... I just liked it. Like, the game already was like making stuff really, really clear. You ask for a hint, and it's basically like, yeah, so that gas, what if it's not just a gas? Like, you know, it was really fucking ham-fisted. I just didn't like it very much.
Yeah.
But I think my major problem with it, like from a game dev perspective, how the hell is that studio going to keep on pumping out games that look like that without going the way of Telltale in much faster time, right? Like, it's almost like they're trying to speed run the Telltale games studio path.
Yeah, I don't know. At least it's not episodic content, though, because I think the problem with episodic releases is it's always the expectations you set up.
Yep.
With a story sort of having a certain amount of time to be completed, whereas these are self-contained tales, so it doesn't matter how big the gap is between them. So
yeah, absolutely. That is true. But at the same time, a Telltale game, like with all the episodes, is like 9 to 12 hours long, whereas this is 3 hours, which is basically a single episode. And there's a lot more production value put into it. I just don't think it was worth it. I really don't think that the amount of production value they put into all their graphics and everything like that it just didn't hold up, really. I would have much rathered it be a bit more stylized in the way that Telltale games typically were.
Yeah.
As far as visuals go, and this is game dev me talking. Gamer me is basically like, it was just badly delivered. The acting was okay, but the 3D models and everything just didn't really help the acting at all. Like, it got really weird, especially in the later end.
Well,
we were base camming, so
in addition to us, there were no other likable characters. So
that's true.
Yeah,
I love
the game became less
addition.
likable.
Yeah. There's a reason why we're actively trying to kill each other is because we didn't actually like the people we were playing as. So.
Yeah, fair enough. I can relate.
Yeah, there was really not really that many likable characters in the story either. Like, I think that's the other thing. Like, you don't really get a chance to get a reason to like them. They're just kind of jerks to each other from the very start.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It was really strange. Like, I want to like it, but it feels like, you know, it would have been better as a movie than as a game, quite honestly. I think.
Like a short sort of single episode kind of movie. Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that if anything, it's actually made me more want to go and play Until Dawn, because that is the one entry from that particular studio that has gotten a really good rap as being quite good.
Yeah.
And I haven't yet played it, so I want to see sort of where the differences are and where they went wrong with this one that they didn't in the first instance.
Yep.
So, yeah. But yeah, anyway, so that's kind of wrapping that up, because that's it took us about a month to get through that, all things considered, with the scheduling and stuff. So yeah. Adrian, what have you been playing this week? What's been on the go?
So I'm just going to get straight to the point. I played Subnautica
Okay.
on Xbox Game Pass because it was free. Mm-hmm. And I remember when I upgraded my PC, I remember Googling like good games to, you know, like pretty games, I think I Googled.
Yeah.
And I remember Subnautica being on the list, and I was like, oh yeah, that's that game about underwater something or other. So I booted it up on Xbox Game Pass, and I've now played through it twice for a total of roughly 70 hours.
Holy shit.
Oh, damn.
And it's definitely in the top 5 most favorite games of all time.
Wow. Okay.
Nice.
Yeah. So it was a big deal.
What the fuck is Subnautica? I need to know more.
Yeah. Okay. So Subnautica it's an underwater survival game. So the premise is that it's set in the future, some sort of dystopian future. You are the survivor of an exploding spaceship called the Aurora, and your spaceship has exploded. You've crash landed on an alien planet in the middle of the ocean. the wreck of the giant sort of like colony-sized spaceship is sort of in the distance, and your little life pod is, you know, about 1 kilometer away, and you are literally just dropped in the middle of the ocean, and there's nothing around you. You have a life pod, you have some like scuba equipment, and you just need to basically survive and navigate. And that's all the game is at first, is you sort of diving around your starting point, exploring a little bit. There's a bit of simple crafting, so you know you can upgrade your flippers, and you can upgrade your oxygen tank so you can dive a little bit deeper. And then as you play the game for longer, you start to explore further away from where your life pod lands. And to give you an idea, the starting area where you land is called the Safe Shallows for a reason. And it's basically a coral reef. And then as you start to sort of edge out away from that zone, you start to encounter new biomes. And the game, at first I thought the game was randomly generated, but it turns out it's not, which actually is a massive boon in its favor, because it's very well designed in that way. And as you start to sort of explore further out, you start to discover some narrative clues. You have a radio in your life pod, and once you repair the radio, you start to receive transmissions of other survivors, or at least recorded transmissions from where their life pods landed. Whenever you arrive at one of those locations, there's no one there. So the game, I wrote down a couple of like just wank words so I could remember what to talk about, because like I can't express how much I love this game. It's really good. And I'll just cut to the chase. The reason it's so good, and I was messaging Christian about it during the fortnight, the game is so terrifying that it's hard to play. It was physically and emotionally hard for me to play this game.
So it's all those aspects of people who are scared of like the deep unknown.
Dude,
brought to life.
It is created from the extracted chemical in those people's brains to trigger this specific kind of phobia. And I didn't know that this was something that creeped me out. Now I know it is. And it starts like in that first biome, a couple of 100 meters out. The second, I won't go into every single biome, but the second area is called the kelp forest. And if you've seen Finding Nemo, it's like that long, tall seaweed that goes like all the way up to near the surface of the water and then all the way down.
It's like the stuff in Minecraft.
Is it? Yeah. Okay. There you go. Yeah. And even the hue of the water changes, so it's harder to see. It gets a bit darker. There's some really like beautiful lighting effects where there's like the rays of like sunlight are sort of dappled through the kelp, and it's the first area where you start to encounter aggressive fauna. And so there are these like things in the water, and you can hear them like growling, and I'm like, oh fuck, and you just swim back to the life pod, and the playful manatee like creatures that are like swimming around your life pod that pose no threat whatsoever. And you start, exploring a little bit further and pushing the boundaries a little bit more. But all the time, it's terrifyingly, like the sound design is so perfect and the visualness of it is so perfect. It's funny because it visually it looks almost just like No Man's Sky in its asset design, like it's kind of
alien-like structures and things. But
yeah, no, well, I just sort of mean the cartoony kind of like like simple, exaggerated style. Yeah. But although all the assets are like that, the ocean looks like a real ocean, and so there are certain points where like you might be swimming along the reef like this, and then suddenly there's like a drop off like that, and you can't see the bottom, and you're staring out at like empty ocean, and then suddenly you see like a shadow like in the distance and a roar, and you're like, fuck that, like I am not there is no way I'm going in that direction.
The more you speak, Adrian, the more I want to see Matt play this game.
Like,
oh god, so
it's
we're talking
crazy.
about like I've seen people playing it where like they start getting chased by something. And it was just recently when I was playing Black Mesa, they changed one of the final events where it becomes this whole sequence where you basically spend like 30 minutes to 45 minutes just being chased by something. And it is the most terrifying shit that I have played in quite a while. Like, the feeling of being chased by something, knowing it's behind you, being able to hear it's behind you, but not knowing how close behind you it is.
Yeah.
That shit's scary. And Subnautica, I'd be struggling with.
It's interesting because if you imagine the starting zone is here, and then the map goes out for like a couple of kilometers all around you, and as you get further out, it gets deeper and darker and scarier to the point where, like, in the late game, you eventually, because Christian's not here, I convinced Christian to play it, so it's a shame that he couldn't join us. But he's not as far into the game as I am. But spoilers ahead of time if anyone is worried, but it's not a huge spoiler. You eventually get this underwater exosuit, and it enables you to walk along the bottom of the ocean. And there are parts later in the game where you're out in the furthest reaches of the map, and it's pitch black. You've got like some floodlights on the front of your exosuit, and you're like, and it's just like seaweed, a couple of sparse rocks, and then like in front of your face, and something was there, and it roars, and you shit yourself. But I can't express how much it impacted on my ability to play the game. And I can honestly say I have never been so scared of anything in my life. Like I've been bungee jumping, and I wasn't this scared.
Yeah,
I can't think of a single horror game or any other single experience in my life that has made me this scared as playing Subnautica. And there's just something about the perfect concoction of visual mystery, depth, being out in the open ocean where you feel so totally vulnerable, where like you can be floating in the middle of the ocean, you look down, it's just darkness. You look all around you, and it's just darkness.
Yeah.
And you can hear something in the water, and it just triggers like a primal, like reptile brain response that dictates that you just swim back to where you came from.
It's a great horror setting. It really is. Like, it's not just the vulnerability; it's the great unknown sort of nature of everything around you. I totally get what you're saying. Yeah.
And then that alone wouldn't make for such a great game. But what makes it so great is that there's a real sense of discovery in it. So each biome you enter has new resources, new creatures, new fish, new animals. So you are motivated to enter these new areas, but you're constantly going like this, like constantly looking in all planes of 3 dimensions for that terrifying, huge shadow in the distance that you know is something that can kill you in one go. Like, it's just always on your mind. It's always in the back of your mind. And I found myself shivering with like this like fearful anticipation. And even when you're back at there's also a base building element to it, which I hear is very much almost the same like No Man's Sky. There are moments when you're back at your base and you could be in the safest part of the game, standing at your front door, and still it's like, quick, get inside. Like, just this idea that there's a whole world behind you full of terrifying sea monsters. You're just like, you're driven to just, get to your safe zone as quickly as you can. It may not resonate with everyone in the same way, but because of, I don't know, some sort of wiring that it sparks in my brain, it was like an optimal, fearful, and engaging and super immersive experience to the point where I finished the game, which took me just under 48 hours because of how cautious I was being. I went back and started a hardcore playthrough, which hardcore, so you have one life.
Yeah.
In the original game, I only died probably about half a dozen times. And most of those times was from drowning because I got lost in an underwater cave. So you do have to manage your oxygen, etc. I rarely got killed by an actual creature because I was so terrifyingly cautious. In the hardcore mode, it has lost a bit of its shine because I know exactly how all the AI behaves. So now when I enter those terrifying areas, I know exactly what to expect.
Yeah.
So it's lost a bit of the... But even still, I'm like, I still get like that shiver of fear. So I guess that's all the points I wanted to cover, but it's mainly just amazing. And there's actually a really strong narrative to it as well that's really quite good. It has a great payoff at the end. And unlike other kind of survival genre games, the game does end. So you do sort of resolve a story within the game.
You've got a goal that is clear.
You have a goal. You can, if you want, technically faff around forever, but it does get to the point where you see everything and you craft everything, and then there's nothing left to do but finish the story. So you can go do that. And even when I went back into hardcore mode, it has you have a scanner in the game that lets you scan every kind of interactable item, and it gives you like a data log entry. You could, if you were a real completionist, go and catalog everything in the ocean, but that would take an incredible amount of time. Not that I'm not past doing it, because I seriously love this game, but that's all I really wanted to say. And it's really interesting having talked to Christian a little bit after he's played it too, because I get the feeling that he wasn't quite as terrified as I was going into this, because I was scared even just leaving the initial coral reef area. The first time I saw a changing color of the water and a different biome, I'm like, nope, not for me. Well, as I think Christian had more of a wondrous kind of experience. So yeah, interesting. We've got someone in the chat asking if I would play it in VR. If I did, dude, I don't think I would survive. I think I'd have have a cardiac arrest.
I've experienced the underwater bits in No Man's Sky in VR, and that is kind of scary as well, for the same sorts of reasons. Less so because that game is not as aggressively trying to kill you as what you just described. But
there's something really special about being on the bottom of the ocean. There's literally 500 meters of ocean above you, and there's some dark whale-sized shadow swimming up there that's making horrible, haunting, growling noises. There's just something about that's special and terrifying, and it just really sold me on this game. So highly recommend. I think everyone should play it. They have brought out a sequel. You could call it a sequel, but it's more
I've seen that.
Yeah, it's not an expansion, because it is standalone and is a different story and a different map. I think it is a smaller game though. It's kind of like a 1.5 kind of thing. It's called Subnautica Below Zero. I of course immediately bought that and jumped into it, even with the warning of it being in early access. And I was like, oh, it's fine. I love it so much. But then it's worth mentioning, I found an abandoned base in Below Zero, the sequel, and there are posters on the wall that are literally someone in MS Paint has drawn arrows on it and been like this is a thing, and this is the thing. It's it's not even. It's literally someone.
It's an under construction sign.
It's not even. They're not even trying to hide the fact that this is someone has scribbled in an MS Paint document, and they've just chucked it in the game as a placeholder.
Yeah.
So it's that unfinished. So I wouldn't recommend jumping into that one if anyone's interested. But yeah, go nuts. People should play it. I won't talk about it anymore because
I will say, hearing you talk about it now, I've actually had it on Steam, and it's in my list of games that I should play. Because I've not played it at all yet. So I am downloading it now.
Is it multiplayer by any chance? Can you play?
That's what makes it so good, is that you don't have to deal with anyone else. And
the true horror.
It's meant to be isolating.
Exactly. True, yeah.
And that's part of what makes it so good, is that you feel truly isolated in this game. And because you're in the middle of the ocean, it's you're alone in the middle of the ocean. It's crazy. Remember when you played Raft? Remember we all played Raft?
Yeah.
Remember when you're in the water and the shark is after you?
Yeah.
It's that all the time.
Yeah, that shit's scary.
Yeah. That's Subnautica all the time.
Yeah. You've got this uncanny ability, Adrian, of when you really latch onto a game, making me really, really want to play what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So
I guarantee you won't regret it. And it's basically free right now. It's on Xbox Game Pass. It cost me $1 to play this game, and I would have happily, had I known what kind of experience I would have played, I would have shelled out $99 for it. It is that good. I really, really like it, and I think it's
also,
really
the fact that you're willing to pay that, it is awesome, because it's a little indie team too.
Yeah, it's crazy, and it feels good to play. It doesn't feel janky. It doesn't feel underdeveloped. There's maybe but with a game so big in scope, with such physical space, it's not perfect, but still really great.
Yeah. Nice.
Get into it.
All right, well, I'm going to jump in next because I've got a kind of similar tale to tell of great love for something that I've just pumped about 70 hours into in the last fortnight. And that is, I've passed the point where Persona 5 Royal has actually gotten its hooks real deep into me. This game is fucking incredible, guys. It is so good. So I think the last time I talked about it, I was about 25-ish in. And I'd kind of gotten past the big tutorial sort of section and the first mine palace that's in the game and kind of, gotten into the story, a little way, but not too deep. But I'm at the point now where I just cannot put this thing down. It's like binge watching a really awesome anime series on Netflix or some other sort of service where you just go episode after episode after episode because you just want to know what happens next. You want to know what happens to this character. You want to know how this character develops, and you just keep it rolling. It's exactly like that. Like I've been trying to find and squeeze every single minute of my day that I'm not working or doing something with the kids or the dog or whatever to play this thing, and I'm up to just over 100 hours now. After a fortnight ago, I was only like 25 or something, so I put some serious time in this fortnight. And fuck, this game is so good. I just cannot. It's actually probably going to be a top list game for me. Like, I don't know if I'll say top 10, but it'll be up in the discussion for sure.
We've had a good week.
We've had a really fucking good week, yeah. It's like, I knew this game was good, but I didn't know it was going to get its hooks in this deep. And I think the reason why it has is partly because of what we're going to talk about later tonight as well. It's got a lot of mainline story content, but it's got a lot of peripheral content that actually has very, very clever ways of enticing you to go and explore and sort of navigate through it as well. And a lot of it is built around this system of confidants that you have where all these other NPCs that you interact with in the game, you actually build relationship levels with. It's like literally a star system up to like 10 star sort of, rapport with them. And as you build stars with them through interacting with them and doing stuff with them, which sometimes is generated by the story in a linear fashion, sometimes it's purely based off you like picking a location and saying, hey, I want to hang out with this person, come out to me at this location. And if you pick locations that actually match their personality and things that they like to do, you actually build a relationship with them quicker. You can give them gifts, you can like make the right choices when it comes to things that you say to them and all this other stuff. But as you level up your confidant level, you actually get bonuses in other aspects of the game as well. So not only are you unlocking story, but you're unlocking like actual abilities and stuff that you can use in the more sort of combat heavy part of the game too. But if you wanted to, you could just skip all of that and just sort of mainline the story and do other stuff that you want to do, because the whole game's built around like you having a finite time resource, and how you spend your time each day as you're sort of going through the school year is very much up to you. And that's probably where I didn't sort of click in the first experience that I had that I spoke about last time, because I hadn't really gotten up to the point where like my agency around how I spent my time was a big part of the game yet, because it had kind of been very much just spoon-fed to me up until that point. But when you sort of flip the switch and you have ultimate control over what you're doing each day, and you choose which characters you want to build relationships with, you end up with your favorites, you work out how to sort of, tinker with your abilities to improve your combat experience and all this other stuff. The game is just so incredible. Like the amount of cleverness that's gone into how all of the different systems sort of interact with each other has just blown my mind. And it's got one of the coolest soundtracks I've ever heard, plus one of the coolest visual styles I've ever seen in a game of this nature. The story kicks ass. The story is so freaking mint. Like the themes that they explore are deep and meaningful and quite horrifying in certain ways as well, in terms of like getting into the depths of people's inner psyches and sometimes what truly makes horrible people like do what they do, and some really cool sort of existential sort of dilemmas and questions that get asked at different moments where as characters are developing. I cannot recommend Persona 5 enough, and obviously if you're going to play it at this point, get Royale, I should say, because it's the more complete version of the game. But for what I think it's going to be like 120 plus hour experience for a game that is that long, you will not be disappointed. It is amazing. So that's my little Persona rant. Yeah.
Persona's been on my list of games to play for ages too.
I think you would love it, Matt. I really do. Yeah.
I look forward to playing it. That's all I can say.
Yeah. I'm hesitant to say much more about it because it would kind of come into the spoiler territory, but I definitely have my favorites now as far as characters go. And I will speak just very briefly about one of them because it doesn't really sort of give anything away that would be crucial. There's one character who's basically like a prissy sort of senior sort of student. This girl named Makoto, who's kind of like she's a more senior year than what you are, and she's like student council kind of material and that sort of stuff. And she goes through this sort of character arc where you're sort of at odds with her for a while before she kind of becomes a big part of the story. But the way that the transition happens is one of the fucking coolest moments in games that I've ever seen. And she basically has a nuclear motorcycle that is like her persona. It is fucking awesome. I just, love it. Anyway, that's my little rant about Persona. Yeah. Matt, you've been playing something that I know you like the hell out of as well. So have we got a 3 for 3?
Yeah.
Have we got a 3 for 3 good week?
We got a 3 for 3. We got a really good, like, the last 2 weeks.
Nice.
I was actually playing this before when I was talking about Chimera Squad. So when you played Chimera Squad, it really had encouraged me to actually go back and reinstall XCOM 2 and actually play through it with War of the Chosen and everything. And so I picked up XCOM 2. I put in probably around 10 hours last time we talked. So in the 2 weeks since then, I've put in another 60. And I'm now on the final missions for it. The only reason I haven't actually finished them is because of the fact that I picked up Minecraft Dungeons, which I've put in a couple of hours with so far. So,
Matt, did you know that before I played Chimera Squad, I played through XCOM 2 War of the Chosen?
We've both played it in like the last month now. But yeah, like, how did you find it? How did you find War of the Chosen? Like, what difficulty?
I played it on above normal, the one difficulty above
normal. Yeah.
It was good. I think it struck the balance between being stressful but not too hard in the end. And XCOM has that curve, that technology curve, where once you get to that point of having specific guns, the difficulty drops right off. And it's a classic case of like a better offense is always better than a better defense. So upgrading weapons will always fast track you through to getting over that bell curve than armor. So if you completely ignore armor upgrades and just go full on investment in offense, it pays off way quicker. So
I've actually, so you had War of the Chosen, but did you also have like the freaking special aliens that turn up on some of the missions, like
the 3 dudes,
serpent?
The what?
Is it the 3 characters that turn up, or is it other stuff?
Yeah.
There's
the Alien Hunters expansion. That one. Yeah,
it might be Alien Hunters. Like, so you've got the Chosen, who are 3, but then there's also another 3 who is like, it's like the Serpent King. There's like I forget the
Behemoth Queen.
Something like that. Those guys are assholes. I fucking hate them. Like, those fights, they suck. They are fights where basically anything that your soldiers do, they immediately get a reaction. The enemy gets a reaction, so they can move, they can shoot, and everything.
So they get one reaction per soldier instead of like their own turn. Holy crap.
One action per soldier action. Each soldier has 2 actions. So if you have a squad of 6 soldiers, the enemy will get 12 actions before their next turn, where they get another fucking 2. It's absolutely insane. The thing that I found with them, like the first time I ran into one, it sucked. It was fucking awful. The second time I ran into one, it was much easier to handle. But then the third time I ran into one, but totally by accident, I'd taken along one of my soldiers that had the weapon mod that has a chance to execute. And the first hit on the fucking alien, it worked. It literally, like, the most powerful one of them, which has something like 150 HP, which is intense in XCOM. Single hit, and he just dropped dead. He was immediately fucking executed.
I didn't know that would work.
I've got a freaking achievement for it and everything. Like, if you actually kill one of those alien leaders in the first time you meet them, you get that achievement. So that shit actually works.
Those 3 alien characters, because it's a bit tricky, because War of the Chosen has 3 alien characters that invade your missions. These other 3 aliens also invade your missions, but they're just like super versions of like an ordinary alien that you normally fight in the game.
Right.
But what happens is these dickheads, once you do a certain amount of damage to them, they teleport away.
They run away.
The field, so that they can come back later in another mission and mess with you. They keep whatever health they had left when you last engaged with them. So it's meant to spread them out over the course of a thing. But so if you're able to kill them in one go straight away, basically it's saving you like several
much headache.
Now I've got a question about this actually.
Missions.
So I wanted to ask the actual 3 chosen themselves. They evolve throughout the campaign, don't they? In terms of some of the decisions you make. So the comparison that I wanted to draw, which never occurred to me up until this point, is it seems like the 3 chosen themselves function very similarly to the Nemesis system in the Lord of the Rings Shadow of Mordor game. Yeah, they do
actually. They act a lot like that, but they don't actively react to things that you do.
Yeah, right. That's right.
So like
they just get better.
They just get better, So like, and they can take certain, they can go and screw up your ship and everything, shit like that. Yeah. But otherwise, they're not reacting to the specific things you do, which would be awesome. It would be awesome if they did actually do that. Like, okay, so you've trained your first psionic soldier. Well, now they're immune to psionic attacks. Like they've reacted to something you do. They don't do that. It's just basically there's a random set of perks that they draw from, and they just roll the dice and they take one of those, basically.
Okay, yeah.
So, for instance, like one of the ones that I fought was immune to melee damage, which every single time that I fought him and completely forgot that he was immune to melee damage was like, oh, fuck. I've just run a soldier up to him and they've slashed at him and he's just like, what?
So fairly linear progression with some RNG involved.
Yes, there's some RNG involved in there.
The main problem with the War of the Chosen content, I think I mentioned this last time when I talked about when I played it, it's the same as the Blood Court expansion in Darkest Dungeon, where like it takes an already stressful game and just adds another level of micromanagement on top of it. So like it's not just adding more enemies, it adds a whole new mechanic on top of the micromanagement of XCOM, where now you're also managing this other threat on top of everything that you're managing.
They did remove the timed missions. So like with the War of the Chosen, when they released it, they removed like one of the things they had, it was really unpopular when they released XCOM 2, was that missions were timed. Like you had materials that you could pick up by running through the map and grabbing them.
And if you didn't interact with them on the map, they would disappear from the map as an option to engage.
They would disappear and you would miss out on those materials. So those are gone, and they were kind of replaced by the Chosen. But then you can have shit like, so one of the things that they've added is some missions have sit reps, which is basically like you can only do this mission with 3 characters. You can only take characters on this mission that are below sergeant in rank. You can have the Lost show up, which are basically like zombies.
Yeah.
But I had a mission where it was like, you can only take 3 characters. And then I had a fucking Chosen turn up on that mission. And now the difficulty was already high because it's the same mission as usual, but with only 3 characters. But now slap a Chosen on top of that. And the mission suddenly was like, oh, fuck, this is stupid. But I think when we were discussing it last time as well, like I play the game the same way Adrian does. I'm a perfectionist. Like I kind of treat it like chess where it's like, okay, well, if I make these moves, can I get through the mission without losing anybody on a mission that I otherwise would have just lost so many characters?
Save scum for the win.
Like I play it save scumming the shit out of it because sometimes like XCOM's unfair. Like it feels unfair. Like I've discussed it in game design a lot. Like the fact that it shows you the percentage chance, we do not pass percentages well as humans. And so you see 90% chance and you're like, that's a guaranteed hit. And then you get the 10
guaranteed. Yeah.
And then you get the 10% where you've missed, and you're like, "What the fuck?"
And that percentage lowers as you play. You're like 70%. That's a hit. Like that's guaranteed. Exactly. And then when you miss the 70%, you're like, "That's bullshit." but I found exactly 30% chance that wouldn't happen.
It's funny going from Chimera Squad to XCOM 2 because the XCOM 2 soldiers are so much weaker than the Chimera Squad. They are so weaker. Like because from the very get-go in Chimera Squad, your hit chance is up around 70%. But then you go into XCOM 2 and it's like your characters have a 30% chance to hit when they first start off, and they're just garbage.
I feel like in Chimera Squad, you never miss. I don't remember
really never miss.
ever being that upset.
You really do.
Yeah.
But it's always a risk in XCOM 2 until late game, at which point you've got so many fucking weapon mods and everything like that, that even when you do miss, you still manage to do 5 damage or whatever. But I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Final 2 missions now. I'll probably end out actually finishing them off, and just to be able to say I'm done with that now, for real. But I've thoroughly enjoyed actually going back through and playing it. So
all of us just in time for some Minecraft Dungeons next week. Be good.
Hell yeah, I'm already playing it. So.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Yeah, no, we've had a bunch of people that we know sort of already crack in last night and get going on it. So I'm super keen. So I've temporarily put down Animal Crossing just for a few days. I haven't played it in the last 3 days because I realized that I'd gone solid for like a month and I just needed a break. So yeah.
In the past 2 weeks, I've not actually touched Animal Crossing because I was playing XCOM. So.
Yeah, it's fair. But I did see that apparently Snow has come to the game now, so I might have to log in and see what all that's about. But anyway.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
All right, let's dive into some industry news. So this week, Matt, kick us off tonight. What do we got to chat about? What's happening in the great world of gaming?
Yeah, so this is a bit of news that we've known about for a while now, but NoClip is developing a documentary about Arcane Studios.
Yeah.
So they're the guys that have worked on Dishonored, the Dishonored series of games,
and Prey, which is an awesome game.
Prey as well.
Yeah.
And so the documentary has revealed, and apparently this is a fact
Sorry, Matt, Prey was that game released by my local church, right? Where I repent my sins and feel the love of Christ. I
thought that was going a totally different direction than where it went. Mm-hmm. I have to say.
It's my favorite non-denominational.
But yeah, so the NoClip documentary is essentially covering the history of Arcane, what they've developed, where they've gone, and everything. It looks really interesting, but then one of the super fascinating things that came out of it was that apparently Arcane was working on a Half-Life episode. They were working on episode 4, so like. Which is especially weird, right? Like, because we didn't even get Half-Life episode 3, but they were working on 4. So clearly Valve must have been working on 3.
Hey, if Star Wars are good enough to start at episode 4, then, you know.
But the footage from the NoClip documentary, so the documentary is not out yet. They've only just released snippets. The footage basically shows what apparently the episode was called Return to Ravenholm. Which is the really creepy area that you go through in Half-Life 2. It's like full of zombies and everything. It was creepy then, yeah. I actually played through Half-Life 2 again recently, and it is not creepy anymore. Like, the whole game has just not aged well at all. But yeah, so it looks really interesting. I'm actually quite looking forward to the documentary because we're suddenly getting a lot of Half-Life content. So another thing that was kind of like came out around the same time, and the reason that I actually heard about the documentary was because there's a Valve News Network YouTube channel that I follow that has been completely inactive for pretty much months, if not like 3 or 4 years, and now suddenly they've got a shit ton of content to talk about because Half-Life Alyx has come out, and we know about this documentary as well.
Yeah.
Apparently they've found that Valve released the new Source engine with the release of Alyx, since they've done a bunch of major updates to it. And as part of that, they were trying to a whole bunch of developers and fans were trying to find if they could actually see any sort of content or hints about what else Valve is doing with Half-Life at the moment. Because the SDK basically comes with a whole bunch of content for Half-Life Alyx. And it turns out that before a patch that Valve released when they figured out this issue, there's a whole bunch of README-only files in there that, when accessed through the SDK, basically show like thousands of files that aren't used in Half-Life Alyx but are tagged as Half-Life content. Which seems to suggest, and it's like 3 to 4 times the size of the amount of files that Half-Life Alyx has. Either the game used to be way bigger, or Valve are currently working on something else Half-Life related that shares assets with Half-Life Alyx.
Couldn't be sort of scaffolding for future DLC link-ins or something?
It is entirely possible because their engine, like there's a really cool Twitter thread that I actually retweeted, talking about the upgrades they've made to Source, and it is fucking amazing. Like, it is absolutely incredible. But who goes and makes a whole bunch of immense upgrades to their game engine to make it current gen, and then not intend on using it to make more first-person shooters? Because that's what Source Engine is specifically for, right? So I suspect that Valve is still working on a ton of new Half-Life content. That's the impression I get.
I heard a rumor that they were working on a new racing game full of expensive sports cars called Midlife.
Midlife :crisis.
Yeah, they're developing it with that company Crytek.
Yeah,
and it's a joint project. Midlife Crisis.
That's Crisis Midlife. It's
a
totally different game.
Totally different.
Nice. I can see that having a lot of cosmetic DLC attached for sure.
100%. Yeah, you'll be dumping so much money on that thing.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, I don't think that any of the arguments that I've heard recently around, the fact that now Valve has got like people interested in Half-Life again, and of course they're going to make more Half-Life content. No. There was never any drop in interest in Half-Life. That wasn't the reason why Half-Life wasn't happening. I think it's much more to do with just getting that sort of talent, in their studio organised again in some sort of functional form to actually get that wheel moving. So, yeah.
Yeah. Like they've a whole bunch of people had pointed out recently that Valve has actually become really active on social media in a way that they haven't been for a really long time.
Yeah. Well, they've got Artifact 2.0 launching shortly as well. They've got that sort of turned back around. Yeah.
And a Dota 2 thing, apparently. Like, there was a teaser trailer for a new Dota 2 package content.
That was for the new international. So each year they do like a huge game package with a lot of new content that's linked to the international tournament circuit. So I'm pretty sure that was for the international 11, I want to say, which is going to be a bit different this time given the the state of the world currently with regards to events and things like that. So yeah.
But I fully expect that we might actually be looking down the barrel of Valve doing games again, like actual proper games. So yeah.
It's good. Cool. Well, all right, well, speaking of events and stuff, I actually just wanted to, because it's been a little while since we spoke about this, and there's been quite a bit of activity in this space recently. I'm going to do just a bit of a wrap-up tonight for news when it comes to some of the impact of big events being cancelled and shifted and new things coming up to take their place as we approach E3 season, because that's pretty much what we're getting into now. I think that, news cycle-wise, we've started to notice there's a bit more activity sort of building up, and there's been a bit more sort of stuff coming out. You've had that Paper Mario trailer for the Origami King in the last couple of weeks. You had Jeff Keighley's out there doing his Summer Games Fest stuff where a lot of new games are getting footage shown for them, and the Ghost of Tsushima stuff that we saw from PlayStation recently. But it's all happening, and I mean, a lot of it comes from like big games conventions that normally would have been the places for this stuff to be showcased that are now no longer happening. And video games industry is not the only industry that's been hit by this. Tabletop industry has been hit pretty severely in the last couple of weeks too, with some big announcements of Gen Con has been cancelled now, which is one of the biggest sort of gaming conventions in the US each year period, and that's got like a 50+ year history, I think, sort of dating back from the origins of Dungeons and Dragons. I think Gary Gygax might have actually been organised, part of the organisers for the original sort of start of that. Essen has been cancelled as well, so Essen Spiel, which is also where the world famous Spiel des Jahres awards get given out for board games. They're kind of like
is that that's like the European one?
I can't remember exactly where it's held. Well, it's actually held in Essen. Where is Essen? I actually don't know where that is.
Look it up.
I'm pretty sure that's Switzerland. I could be wrong. Anyway, so someone who actually knows Europe can correct me. But anyway, that's kind of board games industry struggling a bit. Germany, is it? Okay, there you go. Yep. Yeah. Gamescom as well, which has been held in Germany sort of for the last few years, is another one that has switched to a digital only format this year. So they've got digital events that they're going to be announcing soon. But as a quick rundown, this is kind of what's taken its place. So over the course of the next few months, we've got kind of like it's almost like a patchwork digital E3 that's going to be happening, kicking off with the 6th of June. They're actually going to be doing the PC gaming show, which they usually do in conjunction with E3 as a separate thing. So that's typically hosted by Sean Danine Coombs, and I don't know if he's going to be hosting again. I would assume there's no reason why he wouldn't. But that's going to be broadcasting a full day of live streamed programming from Games Radar, Paradox Interactive, and the Guerrilla Collective, who I think have been involved in the past. EA are still going to do EA Play, so they're going to do EA Play Live on the 11th of June, so they're going to be turning their showcase, which has usually been E3 adjacent anyway, into a digital thing, so they're going to do all the EA stuff, whatever that happens to be this year. Cyberpunk 2077 is getting its own event. So on the 11th of June, CD Projekt Red is actually going to do like a big live stream on just Cyberpunk. So they're going to do like a big deep dive into the game sort of in the lead up to its September 17th release. We've got a Day of the Devs event coming up on June 22nd and again in July on the 20th as well, where Double Fine, I Am 8-Bit, and Jeff Keighley from the Game Awards is actually going to be holding two separate events where they're going to do like gameplay, news, musical performances, a bit more like a variety hour kind of spin on this sort of thing. So I imagine it would be a little bit more like the Game Awards kind of format, just without the awards, like that kind of level of production.
Day of the Devs usually happens at GDC.
There you go.
A GDC thing. So it's usually like a little stall, and it's basically where Double Fine uses their clout to get a whole bunch of indies exposed to not naked, but their games exposed. So.
Yeah, well, naked
unfortunately,
too. Yeah. June 23, we're going to see the New Game Plus Expo, which is going to bring together 14 developers and publishers, mostly Japan-centric. So that's going to be streamed on Twitch, with things like Sega, Arc System Works, SNK, Spike Chunsoft. There's a few companies that I don't know there, but Sega's a big one, obviously, so you probably see some stuff on there like the new Yakuza. Bit Summit, which is another huge convention that's held in Japan, which we heard about a little bit on the show when we had Matt, who was it?
V or
no?
Jeddah?
It was Jeddah. Yeah, Jeddah spoke to us about Bit Summit. So, that's usually held in Kyoto. So that's going to be held digitally this year. So there's going to be a whole bunch of Japanese indie devs, about 80 of them, that'll be live streaming their stuff. That'll be cool. And then July ramps up even further. So we've got Xbox Game Studios Showcase where they're going to show stuff about, the new Halo. We could probably see some stuff on Hellblade 2, so Senua's Saga, and some of those other developers that Microsoft sort of now owns. We've got Ubisoft doing a big event called Ubisoft Forward on the 12th of July. So they'll probably give us updates on some of the things that are burning in their sort of catalogue, like Watch Dogs Legion, Rainbow Six Quarantine, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, obviously. Be a big opportunity for them to get some more stuff out, some actual gameplay footage perhaps. And then the other one is EVO. So EVO is interesting because EVO is usually a sort of, fighting tournament sort of in person, but switching to digital is, pretty controversial. So, because the nature of the inputs for those games, the latency does make it hard to have that same kind of experience. So, yeah.
The piece of news I love most about EVO is the fact that because Nintendo's online services are so bad, they dropped Smash and replaced it with Them's Fighting Herds, which was the My Little Pony game.
Wow.
It got taken down, and it's just been recently released, and apparently it's fucking great. So that's
hilarious. I like it.
Why not?
Them's Fighting Herds. That's such a great name for a My Little Pony fighting game.
It's fucking great.
Yeah.
My Little Turds.
Smash Brothers is a steaming pile of turds. Not My Little Turds.
Them's Fighting Turds. I love it. Anyway, so that'll be happening EVO online, 4th of July through to the 2nd of August. So we'll be able to see a bit more of that stuff online, which will be cool. And then Gamescom is going to do its opening night live celebration, which is also hosted by Jeff Keighley as a digital event. So that'll be on the 27th of August, so heading into that part of the year. So tons of things happening like over the next 2-3 months. There'll be reveals, there'll be new trailers, there'll be gameplay footage and stuff sort of drip feeding over that entire period instead of just sort of centrally on 1 week. But I mean, we've kind of been in a way training for this in the last few years anyway, with how far out the E3 leaks have been starting. So now it's almost like the leaks have been formalized into their own little batches of content. So, which is pretty cool. But yeah, Ray Return, nice.
Nice.
The last one to cap all of this off is we just got the announcement today, in fact, that BlizzCon 2020 has officially been cancelled. So they were talking for a while about doing some sort of hybrid event, some in-person sort of tournament stuff and some digital stuff. They've scrapped that idea entirely. It's now going to be off the cards totally for 2020, and they're looking to do some sort of digital replacement for the tournament aspects of it, at least to cover the esports requirements in the early new year for 2021. But that means that we're not going to get any big event type showcase of things like Overwatch 2 this year, Diablo 4, Diablo Immortal, God knows what's happening with that at the moment. And interestingly, because the next big WoW expansion for World of Warcraft Shadowlands was due this year, and that's typically where they have the big lead up for that, we're not going to get that in the same style of event this year. So that raises questions about what that's going to mean for World of Warcraft. First time in a while we haven't had a BlizzCon. I mean, they did have sort of one-on, one-off approach in the very beginning of that convention, if I remember correctly. So it hasn't always been
the way they were doing it.
Yeah,
the way they were doing it originally was Blizzard was always known as that studio. Like, we'll talk about it when we're ready to talk about it.
Yes.
And then I think when they merged with Activision, basically they got pushed into a do BlizzCon every year.
Yeah.
So the fact they're not doing one this year and it's getting pushed to next year is good.
It's probably very fortuitous sort of development for them in a way that the pressure kind of gets taken off a bit and they can focus on their games instead of, the public opinion. But it is also a very bad year for them in a way that they don't have that opportunity to kind of rebuild some of their lost face from recent events. So, yeah.
Yeah. I can't believe that when they made the announcement, they basically said, you all have internet connections, right?
Nice.
I was trying to think of a joke using that.
I don't think you're going to get any better than that. That was perfect. Yeah.
You guys have internet, right?
Perfect. All right. Well, that's a whole bunch of news. So let's transition into tonight's main topic. Speaking of getting off track, we're going to chat tonight about doing exactly that in game form. So now Christian came up with a fantastic idea for a topic during the week, and then he pissed off. So we're going to cover it without him, basically.
Yep.
So
we're going to explore the topic without him.
That's right. Yep. Absolutely. So we thought it would be fun rather than do like a topic where we talk about open world games, because that's kind of something we have done before and it's a bit of a done to death thing. We want to actually talk specifically about the nature of exploration in games, and that can take many different forms depending on what we're playing. We've had some good examples tonight, but kind of like what aspects of exploring in games really sort of capture our excitement and enthusiasm as opposed to just feeling like we're going through the motions and ticking boxes. So what is it that actually captures our imagination and wants us to actually sort of get off the beaten track, if you like, and sort of derail ourselves to go and explore the far reaches and push the boundaries of these different game worlds and experiences that we've got. So I actually kind of wanted to, now that you've hit on that pretty hard tonight already, Adrian, maybe start with Subnautica for you as being like a good way to dive into this pardon the pun topic. So but
pardon the pun. Since when do you say fucking pardon the pun?
Yeah, it's I'm never pardoning it.
What's wrong?
Normally it's suffer the pun.
Suffer the pun. Take my pun.
Drown in the pun.
My pun.
Thank you, sir. May I have another? It's generally how it goes. So having just played like a game built around exploration, I had to think about this topic and tried to think about other games that sort of aim for the same kind of thing but don't quite give the same sense. And the thing that I played recently, which kind of brings it to mind, was Borderlands 3, where that should be a game that sort of promotes a sense of exploration, because you've got like an open world, you go to different planets, each of them is a different sort of theme. You're meant to explore. It promotes exploration by offering you loot as the reward. But by comparison, I find the areas in Borderlands still so bland and vapid, whilst playing Subnautica, there's just this strange feeling of like intent behind everything. And a big part of it, I think, is also the immersion. So, I mean, Borderlands is not exactly the kind of game you immerse yourself in, per se. It's the sort of thing you go into guns blazing, and, you know, if you have a mullet, you might enjoy it even more.
If you breathe through the mouth, per se, you might.
Yeah, live in the eastern suburbs of Perth, you might really enjoy Borderlands. But Subnautica, on the other hand, just feels like a kind of game that like entices you to explore. I mean, the whole point of it is the exploration, so it would have to be good. In my mind, it's just a short checklist, I guess, of like what are the things in my mind that create that sense of exploration. And I wrote a few of them down. I think the two big ones for me, one that I think doesn't often get thought about is the traversal of how you explore. So I think there have been plenty of games where you walk around and that's fine. But the way a good example might be like Spider-Man, the recent PS4 Spider-Man game. And I forgot to bring this up when I talked about Subnautica, but one of the main reasons it is so engaging is the swimming in Subnautica is very engaging, to the point where moving around gives you the same kind of sense of freedom and excitement that swinging around the city does in Spider-Man.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're able to you have complete precise control over you as an entity, whether you're in the water in flippers or in a vehicle or some other way of getting around. If there's like a rock on the on the seabed, you can completely control in this fashion the way that you sort of maneuver around it, and that makes getting from place to place an enjoyable activity. And then when you get your first little like one-man submarine, it's like real zippy and quick and makes a nice little humming noise as it goes through the water. All these little things add up to being fun, just getting from A to B. So before even the idea of exploration for me comes the idea of how do you get around within the game. And again, by comparison, Borderlands 3 has vehicles, but they're all crap. They all feel the same. Like there's no real thrill of getting into a vehicle. So I find that's a bit different. The other thing that comes to mind is Minecraft, where like Minecraft for me has a very similar sense of exploration and discovery as Subnautica, where you're going into new biomes and seeing new things, and the way you get from A to B is kind of, a little bit different to just being dropped into an open world and, not having any purpose. I've gone a bit off on a tangent, but there's some other things there. Does that answer your initial question, Luke, to sort of...
Yeah, I think so. It's kind of that sense of wonder that you get from something new that's captivating, as opposed to feeling like it's placed there just to increase the size of the game, as opposed to...
It could be cheating, but there's two other little things. Well, the one that I'm thinking of that's kind of cheating is biomes. So the word biomes get thrown around a lot when it comes to like exploration survival style games, where you'll be physically moving through the world, and then the environment will change and you'll be in a different kind of area, whether it's moving from jungle to desert or grassland to beach or whatever it might be. Encountering these new biomes in these kinds of games and then exploring them and finding out what's different and what kind of resources are here, what kind of enemies are here, what can I get from this new landscape, this new biome. So that's a big one for me, and that links into the third point that I think is really important, and that's the sense of reward you get from exploring, because exploring just on its own is not overly exciting unless you're venturing out into the unknown and bringing something back that gives you some kind of continued value in the game. And I think if you can perfect that kind of loop, then I think you're on to like a really good sort of sense of exploration. At least that, relates to my recent experience in Subnautica, because that is the loop that was, I think, really perfected in this game and what made me keep playing and keep going out. And, that sort of was the columns supporting the game, and on top of those columns you had the theme and the feeling and the vibe and the underwaterness of it, but it still had those solid kind of exploration mechanics behind it.
Yeah,
I think really
and when the foundations of the game are around exploration as opposed to just like a peripheral thing, then totally makes it worthwhile. Yeah.
I tend to agree. Yeah. So that's been my recent experience. I mean, that isn't like, if we're talking like open world style game. I'm trying to think of other games where there's like a sense of discovery and.
I definitely don't think it's limited to open world, but I mean, open world is probably the easiest to think about in terms of exploration because it's a very literal sense of exploration. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the games that I will go back to every time when it comes to talking about exploration done right, for me, is Breath of the Wild. And the reason why I think Breath of the Wild is such an amazing example of where you can do this right is because it does two things very effectively that encourage you to want to explore. Number one is that it actually shows you from a distance the entire world from vantage points where you could look out and see stuff that is interesting and think to yourself, fuck, I need to go there. That looks amazing. I need to actually go and see what that is up close. So that tower system in a way, which, has been done in a lot of other games and it's probably been done well and badly in different games. Like, I think it's probably been done to death a bit in Assassin's Creed and some of the Far Cry games. But Breath of the Wild, it was done very, very well because of the fact that it actually opened up the game world and gave you points of interest, that you actually had a function with your map where you could actually mark points of interest sort of by looking out onto the horizon, and it appeared on your map when you marked it down as well. That actually mechanically built it in so that you could pinpoint something to go and look at later, and that to me was just incredibly smart. So that's one thing. But the other thing about Breath of the Wild that I think is amazing when it comes to exploration in that game is that it gives you such little direction in the game as a whole that the act of exploring is kind of how you progress through the game anyway. Like, it never tells you this is the first dungeon, this is the second dungeon, this is the third dungeon. You can literally attack that game in any order you choose, apart from that very, very first plateau you sort of start on. And even then there's you've got a bit of agency. But as soon as you get off that and get into the main world, like, we've talked about it many times, how you can literally boss rush the end sort of castle if you want to and try and, go for the kill then and there. Obviously, it's, very hard to do that. But as far as the rest of the game goes, because you are given ultimate agency to encounter and explore that in any order you choose, that by itself makes the act of exploring rewarding because it's the core part of the game. It's not a bolt-on. It's literally the experience. So your playthrough of Breath of the Wild for the first time might be drastically different to somebody else's because of the sheer virtue of the things that you encounter, from the fact that one of you decided to go east and one of you decided to go north. So, yeah.
I have an interesting experience to recount, and it happened just before playing the podcast, during the podcast tonight, where obviously I'm on such a high after playing Subnautica. I did purchase No Man's Sky, and was like, okay, what game do I think is going to be just like Subnautica? Because I want more of that. And I played No Man's Sky for about an hour, and already I can feel that it's not exactly what I was looking for. There's like a strange feeling of I think the main part of it is that it doesn't feel dangerous. It doesn't feel kind of scary in the same way Subnautica did. And there is a strange randomness to it, which doesn't quite resonate as well as...
Procedurally generated worlds, I think, have a hump to get over when it comes to wanting you to explore them. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And maybe that's the point I'm trying to make, is that there's this, like... I've written down, like, I've just written the unknown with an underline, and there's an excitement to exploring the unknown. And when you know that someone has placed things in that unknown for you, maybe a good example is Skyrim, where, like, when you start exploring the world of Skyrim, you know that people have sat down in a game studio and developed this world for you to explore, and you will come across things. Not knowing what those things are is fine, because you're going to uncover them as you go. While as in a randomly generated world, you have, like, there's in your mind there's a chance you may not find anything.
Yeah.
So there's kind of a different expectation, I feel, there. But that's what now.
I think when I was thinking about this, I kind of ended out realizing that there's kind of this sliding scale of how a game approaches this exploration, right? Because, like, I think what you're finding, Breath of the Wild is, I'm going to use a word here, and I do not mean this in a mean or bad way. Breath of the Wild's kind of checklisty, where it's like everything's there. Every place that you can explore has a reason to explore it. It has a reward at the end of it. And so not exploring it means that you approach the end of the game weaker for not having done those things.
I don't entirely agree, but go on.
But then No Man's Sky, you can't have a checklist. Everything is randomly generated. You can overlook stuff, right? And there's not really that pressure. Like I find with a game like Breath of the Wild, like there's almost like a little bit of pressure there on me because I'm a completionist to go out and do everything, right? And so it feels checklisty to me for that reason. Like I want to go and explore every single place because there's something interesting in there, right? Whereas No Man's Sky, there's none of that pressure. Like if I miss a freaking flower on the planet, I don't give a shit. Whatever, somebody else can find that later on, right? And you kind of have other games in the middle that have like they have the reward side of it. Like Halo Skulls are one of the ones that really comes to mind. Like I freaking loved playing through the Halo games, finding all the skulls without using a guide or anything like that, because the game really just rewarded you for exploring in such a way that nothing is explicitly stated as explore this area, right? Whereas when you're walking around in Skyrim or Fallout and you get a little symbol that pops up on your map and it's like, hey, there's a vault here, it's very much like signposting, explore this place, right?
Do you like the signposting? Do you think that's a good thing?
Huh?
Do you like signposting?
I don't think it's a good thing.
No.
I personally dislike the signposting. But like I love those games, right? Like I freaking love Breath of the Wild, but it still feels a little bit signposty, right? Like the fact that I've got a scanner that can tell me there's something nearby worth exploring, I actually prefer that thing be taken out so that it's like, this is now a discovery rather than I have a scanner that's told me this is here. I'm not really explored to find that. I've followed something that's guided me to that place, and now I'm doing a thing that the game intended me to find.
Yeah.
Whereas like a game, a part of the reason I love it so much, Outer Wilds, I talk about all the freaking time.
Yeah.
Outer Wilds is basically like, you don't have to explore this place, but you need to, right? Like in order to finish the game, you don't need to go and explore the entire game. But there's no checklist. There's no like, did you go and explore this planet? Did you go and explore this planet?
There is a checklist though.
In your mind.
Yeah.
There is a checklist, but it's a checklist that you're keeping, not the game is keeping it for you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like you're basically like, okay, well, I've been to this planet, and I've been to this ship and all that shit. But that's you doing that, right? Like rather than the game being like, have you explored this place on the map that we have marked for you? Yes or no? And there's not really a reward for exploring in those places either. Like the exploring and finding out narrative is kind of the reward in those. And I find like Control is very much the same. Like exploration and Control, it's a narrative reward at the end of it. Very rarely there's also like a power reward or that sort of thing. And like games like Hitman, Hitman is kind of like a narrative reward, like a mechanical reward, but you're not getting like here's extra HP. So I love games that have exploration. I have a game that I'll talk about later on that I really dislike for exploration, but yeah, that's kind of where I kind of sit in it, I guess.
I think the number one thing for me that will always get me focusing on exploration will be when game narrative is tied into it. And like meaningful narrative, not like side narrative, but actual like core narrative. Because then for me, the act of exploring, remains enjoyable, but it feels like a core part of the experience to the point where I've got FOMO if I don't engage with it. So
exactly, yes.
And actually, a really good example of where that didn't kind of resonate for me, as much as I love the game, is actually games like, and there's a very long list of games that do this. I'm just going to pick one example, is Horizon Zero Dawn. So Horizon Zero Dawn, and I could probably say the Dragon Age games would be a good example of this as well. They have large, expansive maps where like the core game takes place, in a way that it sort of navigates and weaves through like good big parts of the map. Actually, Red Dead Redemption 2 is another good example of this. But in order to explore all of the map and get to all of the outer reaches and sort of push out all the edges and all that sort of stuff, the game requires you to engage with side quest content to actually get to all of those sort of uncharted areas. Now, if that side quest content is done in a way that is engaging with the main story of the game and is actually rewarding engaging with it, because otherwise you miss out on big chunks of tale that matter, then I'm fine with that. But if it's like superfluous sort of, additional chapters that don't have a tie-in or link to anything, and, some character that you've never met before you encounter and you go through like a little story with them, and then that's the end of it. And it's almost like a separate instance that could exist in another world entirely. That sort of stuff I don't care about. So, if I can mainline a game and feel like I've not missed anything, then they've not done exploration right. If I mainline a game and feel that I've actually missed a whole bunch of key information that relates to the core narrative that I'm experiencing, then that's, a good way to encourage you to get off that beaten track and explore. And honestly, like the stuff that I've been playing through with Persona is a good example of that too, because Persona is an example of a game that, Persona 5, where you don't sort of rely on the map as a core feature of the game. Like there is a map, there's a rail map which shows you different locations at stations that you can travel to, where some of the different characters you interact with are at. But the function of that is mostly just to sort of show you this network of connections you've got from a character and narrative sense. Like it doesn't really form a geographical sort of tick list at all. It's more just reminding you that you can get outside of your comfort zone and experience more of the story and sort of learn more about the world that you're in a way that actually matters to the rest of what you're experiencing. And that's the sort of stuff that I love. So, yeah.
I forgot to mention, Subnautica has no map. And for a large part of the game, you have no compass. So you're dropped in the middle of the ocean and there's no way to get your bearings.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Can you create your own sort of markers to sort of...
You can leave little buoy markers, but you have to craft them, so they're not for free. And you have your life pod and the wreck of your ship in the distance, and those are the only points of orientation you have.
So I imagine it'd be a little bit like dungeon delving in Minecraft, where you forget to like leave a torch in a particular place to remember where you came in.
Exactly like that. Yeah. You'll be in the middle of the ocean and you'll be lost, and there'll be something scary in the water, and you'll be like, "Fuck, I can't remember which way to go to get back to safety." So I forgot to mention that's part of the immersion and the discovery. I feel like not having a map means that as you're discovering, sometimes you're even going in circles and not even realizing it because of the way the terrain is. You're like, oh shit, I've seen that brain coral before. Am I in the same place, or is this a new area?
That was a really interesting aspect of Red Dead 2 that they sort of promoted as being, you could play a version of this game where you don't have the map, and encourage people to give that a go. Like that to me, I think is kind of like an adventurous way to approach that game. I chose not to because I wanted to kind of experience that part of the mechanic, but I don't know. I think there's definitely something to that. Like, I think people who want to go and treat it more realistically and not actually have like a radar in front of you the whole time, it makes a lot of sense.
It's like people that play games without HUDs. They turn off the HUD and it's just like that little bit more immersive.
I think Red Dead executed it really badly. Like I remember sort of the feedback I had when I was playing it through with that was like it still did stuff that just kind of guided you through. Like it still like the game. There is no off the beaten path in Red Dead 2. Like just there's fucking paths everywhere. There's very rarely a point where you can just turn off the path and then ride out in an open field for the next hour. Yeah. Like you're gonna ride across it, and then 5 minutes later there's another fucking road. Like it feels so built up. But I think like in terms of like I like my exploration to feel like it is off the beaten track. Like I'm actually exploring, right? And so Half-Life has these like little icons that are like the Black Mesa symbol, and it's like explore this area. And it's like I don't want to be told to explore a place, right? Like I want to make the choice to explore it and then get rewarded because I chose to explore it.
Yeah, once you want it to feel organic. Yeah.
So like I think probably my favorite exploration in any game outside of Outer Wilds is actually in Destiny. So like every single raid feels like an exploration when you're first there, because quite often the path through isn't clear. You have to kind of find the path. Like it all feels like it's off the beaten path.
And while it does sort of become linear later on, the first experience, I agree. Yeah.
But that's exploration, right? Like once you've figured out what you're doing, it's never going to feel the same way again. Like Adrian was talking about Subnautica. You once you understand what the cave systems are like, and once you understand how the AI acts, it's no longer an exploration. It's playing through places that you've already been, right? Like I don't explore the path down to the local Coles every single time that I get up to go shopping.
It's navigation instead. Yeah, it's
navigation, not exploration. Yeah.
Man, if every time I went to Coles, there was like a massive shadow swimming in the air above me, I don't know if I would, consider that the same experience every time.
You'd probably buy sushi more often just to set your mind at ease.
Yeah, take that, you fish.
Just a Fat Yeti asked if I would argue that strategy games like Stellaris have reward exploration. 100% they do. Like whenever I start out, like this is my strategy for Stellaris. I start off, I immediately build a second science ship, and then I just start exploring. And I don't explore thoroughly; I explore wide.
Yeah.
Because the more ground that I can cover, the more I know where I'm going to want to set my borders at as a minimum, right? So yes, Stellaris absolutely does reward exploration, but it doesn't force you to do it either.
Stellaris and Civilization are both 4X games. One of those X's is explore.
Yep.
So, yeah.
I just noticed
absolutely rewards that.
Also in the chat, we've got Smashface TV asking about the forest in terms of exploration. And I have to admit, Smashface, that I almost went for the forest over No Man's Sky because of the terror that is like heralded in that game. And I think I might request a refund on No Man's Sky and go for the forest instead, because I now recognize that the fear, I think, is what made the exploration so good. The idea that like every step you take is a terrifying step towards the unknown, where there's something out there waiting to destroy you. I don't know why I like that so much. Maybe there's some sort of... I know because I'm a nihilist, and
Adrian doesn't feel like he's got his money's worth unless he's popping nugs in his DAX. So
I think I've discovered a new genre of game. And you know what's really funny is how much I love Soma and how much I love Subnautica. So obviously there's some sort of... I think underwater games might be my thing. I think I have some fetish for
fear of the unknown from underwater or something.
Yeah. So I guess that's what it is. We'll find out, Smashface, if that can be translated to a forest. We'll find out if I am as scared of forests as I am of the ocean. If Blair Witch Project has taught me anything, I probably will be, because that movie scared the shit out of me when I was a kid. So we'll find out.
a fetish for floaters. Yep.
Yeah.
What about bad exploration though? Have we had any kind of games that have like executed really badly on exploration? Because I can name one easy.
I would have said Borderlands as well, following Adrian's example, because I think that was...
there is no exploration. It's literally waypoint the game. Go to that waypoint, go to that way. There is no exploration in Borderlands. And the worst part is when you do explore, you never get rewarded for it. Sure, you find... The problem with Borderlands is, yes, you can explore. Yes, you might find the odd special chest. No, what's in it is never worth it. That's why the exploration in Borderlands is shit.
Yeah, Matt.
Yeah. Rage 2. Fucking exploration in Rage 2 actually ruined that game for me. It is that fucking bad. Well, you explore and it's like, oh, there's a bunch of buildings over here. It looks like a little bit of civilization that survived the end of the world. I'm going to go explore that. Cool. They're all fucking boxes. It's just unenterable boxes, and that's it. There's nothing there. There's no weapons to pick up. There's probably just things running around. And this comes back to what you said, Adrian, about the traversal is such an important part of exploration. The vehicles in Rage suck. They are just garbage to get around in. I never fucking liked them.
It was a double whammy of the map being made big for the sake of the game being based around vehicles, and then the map being made big without actually filling it with anything interesting.
Exactly. Yeah. And so the best parts of that game are when you're outside of the car in gunfights in spaces that were specifically built for gunfights. Yeah. But the rest of the game in between those areas is just so boring.
I hate to go back there, but we cannot forget Fallout 76. And the
moment you said we can't, I hate to go back there.
I just have vivid memories of Christian and I going, what's that building over there? Let's go have a look. We go into the building and there's literally nothing in there. Nothing in the building. And the building it was 4 stories with connecting gantries. It was obviously designed to be a point of interest, and there was nothing inside it.
I think they got halfway there. I think that Fallout 76 actually had some really interesting geography to explore in terms of the fact that the map had variety. There were things that were clearly a theme park. It was clearly an office complex. It was clearly this blown out sort of car park shelter or whatever. But you're right, they failed to capitalize on it.
It had biomes. It actually was getting close to having biomes, which no other Fallout game really ever had.
But you know what else had an interesting geography? The pimply crevice of my ass crack. Also has arguably an interesting geography. So I don't know if that stands for Fallout.
Yes, but I enjoy exploring that ass crack. So.
So therefore, it has value. Good point.
Both of them have about the same amount of radioactive fallout, so you know. Adrian, fun note. I have been hearing a lot of positive feedback about the stuff they've added to that game recently. So
I thought you were about to say about my ass crack.
No, never.
I have been hearing some very positive feedback about your ass crack. Oh, well, thank you.
100% go explore it sometime, Luke.
No.
There's things you wouldn't expect in there.
Just like Fallout 76, I'm scared of the NPCs. So
there's a vault of sorts.
Yeah.
There's a vault of sorts.
From which you may never return. Yeah.
Oh, God.
I don't know. What stuff's coming up soon that we might be exploring and enjoying? Did you guys see the map that's coming with Ghost of Tsushima? Is that something that looked enticing to you? No?
I haven't seen it yet, yeah.
It was very, very large, kind of almost like Assassin's Creed Odyssey sort of style map of the feudal Japan sort of regions that you're going to be exploring. It did look like it could go the Horizon Zero Dawn route, where there's like a big expansive area and that you need sort of ways sort of shoehorned in to force you to get to certain bits. But I don't know, like being the setting is, you know, that kind of time in Japan, and there's a lot of really, you know, interesting sort of environment that you can plug in there that's actually quite beautiful and pleasing to the eye. I'm hoping that it's more of that and less of just big for big's sake. So, yeah.
I think the last thing that I want to say on the whole theme of exploration is that outside of sort of survival / sandboxy games, you could argue, like Matt, I think you were kind of touching on it before, that almost every game has exploration in it. For me, I think the key point that it boils down to is the intent and the design.
Yeah.
Like, you can always tell immediately when something has been placed deliberately and when something is like copied and randomly generated. Like, it's almost like you can see the code, you can see the matrix in the game when they do that. So for me, I think the purest sense of exploration, regardless of the genre of game, it could be like a Metroidvania, it could be like a good example, Super Metroid versus Indivisible. Super Metroid has, you know, great exploration, Indivisible doesn't. Same kind of game, well, same genre of game, but you can feel the difference when you play them. Like, you can feel it in there. No Man's Sky, I'm not deep enough into it to judge it harshly, but at the moment, I would say Subnautica, No Man's Sky, you can feel the difference there, you know.
Yeah.
So when it boils right down to it, I think it has a lot to do with the intent of where things are placed and how the world is built. And I think you will always have, ironically, less of a sense of exploration in a big, randomly generated world than you would in like a smaller, deliberately crafted experience, ultimately.
Because if I'm playing a game like, it's so hard to get exploration right, because it is literally one of those things that you once you've explored it once, that's it. Like, there's not really any getting that back. So true exploratory games don't really last, right? They're not really replayable because you can't go back and re-explore stuff.
Yeah.
And it was probably one of the biggest problems with Fallout 76, because, like, at least with the other Fallout games, it felt like you were exploring a wasteland that nobody else has touched in ages, where Fallout 76 was so full of people that it's like, other people have been here, I'm just exploring the same ruins that everybody else has gone through, right?
Yeah.
Whereas a first-person shooter, where they do all the smart game developer tricks, where it's like, okay, we're going to light up this door to grab your attention so that you go through it. But then if you go off the beaten path and you find there's this little cramped, crevicey space that's completely unlit, and you know you have to crouch down to get inside of it, and you start crawling through it, and then you stand up, and on the other side there's something there. That's fucking awesome, right?
Yeah.
I feel like I have gone off the beaten track, I have explored, and I've found something. And I think that's what Destiny does really, really well. And it's the reason why, like, I loved exploring in Breath of the Wild, but I didn't feel like I was exploring in Breath of the Wild. I felt like, you know, this is all being placed here for me to find, because they want me to find it. They've given me a tool to find it. They've given me multiple tools to find it. Whereas if I didn't have the map, if I didn't have the radar, and then coming across any single one of those ruins would actually feel like I've gone off the track and actually found something really neat.
I'm really
a lot of those open world.
I'm really curious to see what you think of Subnautica. I'm really...
Yeah.
I'll be waiting with bated breath if you get round to trying it to see.
I think I'll really like it.
Bated breath, Adrian. Fuck me. That joke.
I think you'll have a whale of a time.
That joke was extremely substandard.
At first, you might feel like a fish out of water, but I think you'll take to it really quickly. You just got to jump in the deep end.
Cool. You created a monster.
I really have. Oh man, I can't top that. So I think that's a good point to end on. Well done, gentlemen. You've literally picked my bones clean of anything I can add to that. So yeah.
You sound almost as salty as the ocean.
Yeah, I feel it tonight. I really do. Man, all right. Well, that's a good sort of discussion of exploration. I think that it's not always restricted to open world games, as we kind of got out of that. There's a lot of different things that those traits of what actually gets us immersed can exist in heaps of different forms. So yeah, is good.
The human body is one place that you might feel like you at home watching might like to explore. Go with my blessing. Feel free to explore yourself. Explore each other. Let's make it a real sort of holistic experience. Let's get real meta and explore Subnautica while someone explores you. Why not?
And when you do that, let us know how you went at mailpartyloader.com. Hit us up Partyloader Show on Twitter and all the other usual places.
Twitch. I want to know.
Adrian wants to know. If you want to see him attempt such a feat, then perhaps you can come and see us explore Minecraft Dungeons next week. I think we're planning on streaming that next Wednesday night. So come join us at twitch.tv/partyloaded for a good old time running through there. That'll be a different kind of Minecraft exploration to what you've been talking about earlier, Adrian, because that will be sort of more planned as opposed to procedurally generated, from what I understand. So, yeah.
Nope. It is actually procedurally generated.
Is it completely though, or is it more like Diablo, where it's like a blend of the two?
It's a blend of the two. It absolutely is a blend of the two, where it's like, it's like not even tile sets, like. I found a couple of times recently while playing it, when I've died and had to go back to the same level, there's portions of it that are very familiar. It's like, okay, I've been through this area before, but they might be shuffled around in a different order or rotated in different ways, so on and so forth.
Sounds like that Metroidvania game that I played a while back from Thunderlotus called Sundered. They did the same sort of thing, but in a 2D sense. Adrian, I think you really enjoyed that game, actually. But it's almost like the Snap Map kind of format, where it's like
sort of
shuffling the map a little. Yeah. Cool.
There was one area that I went into that was like a big crypt, and it was maze-like, and you could tell where they actually had blocked off areas with just like dirt, basically, so you couldn't go through. Mm-hmm. It's like, hey, this corridor should have extended out to somewhere else, but they've just walled it off. And that'll be the random generation doing that. So a degree of it.
Nice. Well, I'm sure it will be a fun time. So 8 p.m. next Wednesday night, you can come and catch us doing that. That'll be good. So but that's it for this week. Thank you very much, gentlemen. It was good. It was a show.
Yeah. Thank you, Luke.
Yeah. And
thanks to our loyal watchers / followers.
Yep.
/ human body explorers.
Yes.
I'm so sorry.
Go and explore yourselves, and we'll catch you all back for the next episode. But that's it for us. Thank you very much. Good night.
Bye-bye.
The Party Loaded podcast is a Channel Endgame production. For this and more great gaming content, bookmark channelendgame.com.